The maitre d' at Celeste, one of the most exclusive restaurants in Dallas, stared at the computer screen, then looked up at me with the kind of tight smile that didn't quite reach the eyes. His uniform was spotless, his posture military straight, but his tone had just enough steel to make it clear. I didn't belong. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't see a reservation under that name." I stood there in my dark charcoal suit. Nothing flashy, just tailored clean. Understated. Intentional. Around me, candlelight danced across crystal glasses and the gentle clink of silverware echoed under the high ceilings. The room radiated quiet wealth, the kind you don't need to show off. You just are it. And in that moment, he didn't think I was. "Maybe you've got the wrong place," he added politely, but with that razor-thin edge I'd heard before. The kind that tells you it's not really a question. The kind that tells you you've been sized up and dismissed. Before I could reply, a familiar voice cut through the hum of conversation like a knife. "Well, didn't think you'd actually show, Ben." "Derek." His voice hadn't changed. Smooth, arrogant, the kind of tone that made even compliments feel like condescension. He strolled toward me from the bar, his tailored Italian suit hugging him like he'd been born into it. His watch probably cost more than the car I drove in college. That grin on his face, it wasn't a smile. It was a smirk sharpened with satisfaction. "This place might be a little upscale for your background," he continued, nodding toward the maitre d'. "There's a Whataburger down the block if you're hungry." The maitre d' blinked, suddenly uncomfortable. A few diners turned to glance in our direction. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I didn't flinch. I knew better than to give Derek that. Instead, I turned back to the maitre d' and said quietly, "Tell Chef Rodrigo that Lucas's dad is here." He gave me a confused look, but disappeared into the kitchen. Derek laughed under his breath. "What is that? Some kind of code?" I didn't answer. He didn't know. 3 years ago, this restaurant, this marble and gold palace, wasn't even open yet. It was a dream, a blueprint, a passion project by a rising young chef no bank would take seriously. But I had believed in him. I had put up the seed money when no one else would. Rodrigo and I went back. We built this place together, and Derek had no idea. But let's back up. I didn't grow up in glass towers or gated communities. I grew up in Oak Cliff, Southwest Dallas, the kind of place where ambition felt like a foreign language. My mom left when I was 9, just gone. One Tuesday morning, she kissed my forehead and said she'd be back after work. We never saw her again. My dad, a mechanic who drank more than he spoke, spent most nights passed out on our busted couch. I was the one paying the bills, turning off the stove, packing my own lunches by 5th grade. By 16, I was working 3 jobs. Janitorial shifts before school. Fast food after. Security on the weekends. My hands were always cracked and sore. My shirt smelled like grease and Windex. The other kids at school didn't make fun of me to my face, but the silence was worse. I was invisible. No one saw the kid mopping the gym floor as someone worth knowing. But I had one thing they didn't: a plan. Every dollar I earned went into a plastic coffee can hidden in my closet. I didn't party. I didn't buy new clothes. I bought books on real estate, investment, business, mindset. I read at night while my dad snored in the next room, his empty bottle tipped sideways on the kitchen counter. When I was 23, everything changed. I was working the night shift at Ruby's Cafe, slinging burgers and coffee to a group of middle-aged men in khakis, talking loudly about opportunity zones and high-yield flips. I didn't understand everything, but I caught enough. They were investors, and they were hunting. Then I remembered Ms. Martin. An elderly neighbor had just passed. Her grandkids lived in Oregon and were trying to sell her old house fast. No listing, no inspections, no waiting, just cash and gone. I took a breath and walked over to the table, heart pounding like a war drum. "Excuse me," I said. "If you're looking for property, I might know one." 2 weeks later, I made my first $4,000 commission just for making the connection. It was more money than I'd ever seen. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even tell my friends. I went home, stared at the check for 2 hours, then opened a business savings account. I wasn't getting out. I was getting in. I didn't touch that $4,000 for a full year. I let it sit in a high-yield business savings account while I worked 12-hour days showing rental units, patching drywall, and unclogging toilets for a mid-tier property management company in East Dallas. The job didn't come with benefits, but came with access, keys to buildings, contracts, lease agreements. I read every single one of them like scripture. By age 25, I had enough scraped together for a down payment on a foreclosed duplex near Fair Park. The place was a wreck, cracked windows, busted HVAC, foundation like Swiss cheese, but the price was right and the bones were solid. I bought it under my LLC, Carter Property Solutions. While my friends were upgrading to their first new cars, I was scraping linoleum off a 1970s kitchen floor and sleeping on an air mattress in one of the units to save money. I had no cable, no central air, and dinner was whatever I could microwave in less than 3 minutes. But when I rented out both sides of that duplex 6 months later, my passive income outpaced my salary for the first time. That's when I got hungry. I stopped thinking small. Over the next 4 years, I acquired 5 more properties, mostly distressed or auctioned homes in forgotten corners of the city. I built up cash flow, earned a name in local investment circles, and quietly started attending city council meetings. I didn't speak. I just listened. Listened to who got projects approved, who blocked zoning, who owed who favors. I was learning the real game. Then one Wednesday night, my phone buzzed during dinner. Karen, my assistant and one of the sharpest people I knew, texted just 6 words. Horizon Park anchor slot just opened. I nearly choked on my baked chicken. Horizon Park wasn't just another real estate play. It was the project, a $40 million mixed-use redevelopment in South Dallas that had attracted media buzz, state funding, and national investors. The city was trying to revitalize a neglected area with high-end condos, commercial units, and community-forward design they love to print on glossy brochures. One of the lead investors had backed out at the last minute. They were desperate to maintain momentum and PR goodwill, and they were looking for a local partner to fill the gap. "I've already sent your name," Karen said when I called. "You've got the resume, the reputation, and the roots. But you'll need to move fast. The buy-in is big." "How big?" $8 million. I swallowed hard. I had access to about 5 in liquidity, another 2 in credit lines. But I could make it work. It would stretch me thin, but sometimes you bet the house to build a tower. I agreed. A week later, I walked into a temporary conference trailer on the construction site. Steel beams rising in the background, blueprints tacked to every wall. The heat was brutal, but the air inside was colder than ambition. Suits, laptops, coffee cups with logos. Howard dressed in Patagonia and cufflinks. And then he walked in. Derek. Same Derek from Celeste. Harvard smile, manicured confidence, Rolex peeking from under his sleeve like it was checking its own pulse. He looked at me like I was the valet. "You must be Ben, right?" he said, extending a hand with just enough stiffness to remind me he didn't respect me. "The community partner?" "That's me," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. He turned back to the group. "Didn't expect the city to go this literal with the word local." Chuckles all around. A few awkward. Most not. I let it slide. The meeting kicked off. We reviewed architectural plans, funding phases, zoning maps. I chimed in when necessary, keeping my tone professional but assertive. When I mentioned an adjustment to the northern boundary setback to avoid a variance delay, Derek cut me off mid-sentence. "Let's stay focused on the big picture," he said, not even looking my way. "Details can wait." I nodded calmly and made a note in my folder. But in my head, I was making a list. Later that week, we met on site. The summer sun beat down on our hard hats as we toured the framework of what would become luxury condos. Derek walked like he was leading a TED Talk. And then he said it. "Ben, do you mind grabbing coffee for the team? You know the area best." I froze. Everyone went quiet. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't casual. This was Derek assigning me the role he thought I belonged in. A glorified assistant. The other men shifted uncomfortably. Karen, standing nearby, looked at me with a mix of fury and restraint. But I smiled. "Sure," I said. I was just about to head out anyway. I walked to my truck, palms tight around the steering wheel. But by the time I reached the coffee shop, my heartbeat had slowed. My thoughts had sharpened. Derek had just made his biggest mistake. He thought this was his game. He had no idea I was already rewriting the rules. 3 weeks after Derek asked me to fetch coffee for the team, things were about to change. I sat in my office overlooking the city skyline, flipping through architectural plans and budget sheets. The smell of fresh paint and wet concrete from the construction site next door filtered through the open window. Horizon Park was no longer a blueprint or a dream. It was becoming real, and so was my plan. Meanwhile, Derek was still running around like he owned the place, organizing meetings, barking orders, playing project manager with all the confidence of someone who thinks money buys respect. But Derek didn't know what I knew. He had no idea the deals being quietly inked behind his back. I had been quietly buying out the other investors, the smaller partners who were growing tired of Derek's arrogance. 2 months prior, I met Marcus and David, the two minority shareholders, at a low-key bar downtown. They weren't bad guys, just businessmen caught in the storm of Derek's ego. I slid into the booth, cutting straight to the point. I know you're having second thoughts about working with Derek. Marcus shifted in his seat. It's complicated. We're already invested. Right, I said. But I'm offering to buy your shares at full value, plus a 10% premium. David looked stunned. That's generous. Not really, I replied, smiling. It's smart. You get out clean, and I take it from there. There was silence, then nods. Lawyers were called. Paperwork was drawn. Within weeks, I owned 60% of Horizon Park. Derek was still clueless. He kept acting like he was the boss, ordering people around, dismissing my input, brushing aside community concerns. Then came the announcement. The team would celebrate the completion of the first phase with a private dinner at Celeste. Derek, of course, chose the venue. He strutted into our Thursday meeting with a smug grin. Gentlemen, and Ben, he said with emphasis, it's time to celebrate. I've booked us the private rooftop at Celeste, the best place in Dallas. I smiled. Excellent choice. I'll book rooms at the Fitzgerald nearby for anyone staying overnight. He raised an eyebrow. The Fitzgerald? That's a 5-star. We just closed a $40 million project, I said smoothly. We can afford it. Derek chuckled. You'd know where the big shots hang out, wouldn't you, Ben? The room went quiet. That jab was meant to sting. Derek thought he had won, that he was still the king. But he had no idea what was coming. The night of the dinner arrived warm and clear. I walked into Celeste in my best suit, calm and confident. The maitre d' eyed me up and down. I'm sorry, sir, he said. We have no reservation under that name. Before I could reply, Derek appeared from behind the bar, grinning like a cat with a full bowl. Well, he sneered loud enough for nearby diners to hear. Didn't think you'd actually show up, Ben. This place might be a bit much for someone like you, he continued, voice dripping with condescension. There's a Whataburger down the street, if you're hungry. Heads turned. I could feel every eye in the room on me. I leaned close to the maitre d'. You must be new here, I said quietly. Please tell Chef Rodrigo that Lucas's dad has arrived. The maitre d' blinked, then disappeared into the kitchen. Derek laughed softly, thinking I was bluffing. 2 minutes later, the kitchen doors burst open, and out came Chef Rodrigo in his pristine white coat, face radiant. Ben, my old friend, he exclaimed, pulling me into a bear hug that smelled of garlic and fresh herbs. Derek's smirk vanished, replaced by confusion. The other investors showed up one by one, their eyebrows raising as they witnessed this unexpected reunion. Chef Rodrigo led me to the garden suite, Celeste's most exclusive room, a glass-enclosed space overlooking the city skyline. I poured wine for Marcus and David as they peppered me with questions. How do you know Rodrigo? Marcus asked. We go way back, I said. I helped him open this place. David nearly choked on his wine. You own this restaurant? I smiled. I'm a primary investor. And tomorrow, we'll be staying at the Fitzgerald. Through the glass, I saw Derek sitting alone in the main dining room, clearly unsettled. I looked at Marcus and David. Would you care to join me? They rose. Derek shook his head, jaw tight. I'm fine here. I smiled sweetly. If your pride allows it, Derek, you're welcome. That was the moment Derek realized the game had changed. When dessert arrived, it came with a message written in chocolate script from the owner. Enjoy your evening. After dinner, I handed Marcus and David folders containing final buyout agreements that made me the sole owner of Horizon Park. Derek was still trying to process it when I called an impromptu meeting at the construction site the next morning. "Gentlemen, and Ben," Derek said, eyes flicking to me uneasily. "Let's plan the next phase." I pulled out an official letter. "Derek," I said calmly, "your services are no longer required on this project. Effective immediately." His face went pale. "You can't fire me. I'm a partner." "Not anymore," I replied, sliding over the paperwork proving 100% ownership. He stood there, mouth moving but no sound coming out. The kid from Harvard was finally learning what I'd known all along. In this city, connections mean nothing if no one wants to connect with you. I leaned back, smiled, and thought about how far I'd come. From fetching coffee to calling the shots. From a kid no one believed in to the man who owned the table. The morning after Derek's dismissal, the city woke up to headlines that made even the most skeptical take notice. Local investor takes full control of Horizon Park. South Dallas native outmaneuvers big city developers. Ben Carter, from neighborhood kid to power player. My phone buzzed relentlessly. Interview requests from business magazines, invitations to speak at conferences, congratulatory messages from city officials. But I didn't chase the spotlight. My eyes were already on what came next. The physical transformation of Horizon Park was spectacular. The gleaming glass towers and polished retail spaces captured headlines and investment dollars. But for me, the heart of the project was what happened at street level. I envisioned a community center, not some generic box with a plaque, but a vibrant space offering after-school programs, a computer lab, job training, and affordable healthcare services. A place where kids from neighborhoods like mine could come to learn, grow, and build futures. The city council was supportive. "You've earned this," the councilwoman told me with a genuine smile. "Whatever you need, just say the word." 2 months later, the Lucas Carter Community Center opened its doors. I named it after my son, not for vanity, but for hope. For every kid out there who deserves a chance, regardless of where they start. The condos above the center sold out within weeks, with priority given to longtime residents. We balanced profit with purpose, ensuring the neighborhood grew without pushing people out. One afternoon, I walked into the community center's computer lab and saw a teenager focused on coding a simple app. His clothes were worn, but his eyes shone with determination. He looked up and asked, "Are you the guy who runs this?" I nodded. He smiled wide. I didn't tell him about the nights I cleaned floors nearby or how often I was overlooked growing up. I didn't need to. He saw what mattered. A man who made it and made room for others to do the same. Months later, in my corner office overlooking the Dallas skyline, I prepared for an interview with Forbes. The journalist asked me about the acquisition, the challenges, and my role going forward. Finally, she asked, "Ben, what do you consider your greatest accomplishment?" I looked out the window, watching children play basketball outside the community center. I glanced at a framed photo on my desk, Danielle and Lucas at the grand opening, their smiles infectious. "My greatest accomplishment," I repeated. I stopped asking for a seat at the table. The journalist looked puzzled. "I built my own table," I said quietly, "and I brought my people with me." She scribbled notes, but some things are too profound to capture in words. They live in quiet moments, pride in a child's eyes, the relief of a mother who can afford rent, the dignity restored in a man once invisible. Derek? He never recovered. His name was scrubbed from company records, and rumors say he moved to Phoenix to start over. He never reached out, and I never looked back, because I wasn't chasing revenge. I was building legacy. From the cracked sidewalks of Oak Cliff to the polished floors of downtown Dallas. One blueprint, one deal, one community-first decision at a time. I became what they never expected. A man who belonged, not just at the table, but at the head of it. If Ben's journey showed you that where you start doesn't define where you end up, share this story with someone who needs that reminder. Comment below, what part of Ben's rise inspired you the most? Like this video if you believe respect is earned, not given. Subscribe for more powerful stories of grit, determination, and triumph over adversity. Remember, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's rising so high, they have to look up just to see you.